The toughest games for Clemson's 2025 season. I'm going to rank them in just a second. You may be even a little shocked at one of the games that I call out as a dark horse for the Tigers. I'll get to that in a second. Thanks for hanging out with me talking Clemson football. And if you like doing that, you like talking Clemson football, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. It is free. Also, in the link below the video here, that's weird how I did my hair. There's a link to my new channel called Another College Football Podcast, because I know there's a bunch out there, and I'm picking at myself for creating another college football podcast, but I do talk about other college football teams. I just broke down the ACC, all 17 teams. Spoiler alert, the California teams are awful. But if you want to check that out and subscribe, check out that link after this video, of course, and subscribe to the channel and drop me a note. Let me know that you heard about it, from me, unless you heard about it from someone else. Anyway, let's dive right in. If you are Clemson, you are a team who cannot escape your opponent's attention. Why? Well, for the past 13, 14 or so years, Clemson has won at least 10 ball games, except for that 2023 season, which we will not talk about. Clemson has went to the college football playoff 7 times. 6 of those times were in consecutive years. And in a 3-year period, Clemson won 2 national championships with 2 different quarterbacks. So needless to say, they are not flying under anyone's radar. In fact, Clemson, for most of their opponents, will be the biggest game of the year, as they have been for many years now. But we need to look at who's the biggest teams, the biggest threats to the Clemson Tigers in this upcoming season. Remember, Clemson is ranked preseason number 2 by Phil Steele. Lindy's and Athlon has them in the top 5. So there's a lot of expectation of them. People are paying attention to them. So who are the teams that could potentially undermine this incredible, please be incredible, season that Clemson could have? And a lot of people believe they will. So I'm going to start out by reminding you that of who they play. I'm going to remind you who they play. First, they start off with LSU, Troy, at Georgia Tech, Syracuse. On September the 27th, they're off. They're at North Carolina. They're at Boston College. SMU comes to town on August the 18th. Clemson has another bye week on October the 25th. I like how that's spaced out. And then the last 5 ball games, Clemson plays Duke, Florida State, at Louisville, Furman, and at South Carolina, just to remind you. So let's start off with who, and I'm ranking these. I'm going from the first to the last here. The first team, which is kind of a dark horse that I believe is going to be a tough game for Clemson, is a team that had the biggest come apart I've ever seen since watching any sport, and it's the Florida State Seminoles. We know what happened last year. They were 2-10. Norvell goes and fires everyone. And he brings in Gus Malzahn. He goes to the transfer portal. He gets Thomas Castellano. By the way, Brock Glenn, the guy who's been through all the crap, stayed with the team, he hasn't transferred out. He's still with them. Again, he's sitting on the bench. Kind of wonder how he feels. Thomas Castellano, they get him from Boston College. If I remember correctly, he was benched last year. But Norvell brings in Gus Malzahn. And the reason I believe that this could be a tough game for Clemson, other than Florida State returning 16 of their returning starters from last year, I believe this will be a tough game because Gus Malzahn, for the majority of the time that he coaches against a really good football team, he brings an incredible scheme to the table. The problem with Malzahn is when he's playing teams that are not that great. It's almost like he becomes too relaxed. It's like, look, we're playing Arkansas this week. Last week, I had over 500 yards on name a top 5 team and maybe even beat them, but turn around and lose to a bad football team. But with Mike Norvell there with Gus Malzahn, I believe he is going to coach up for Clemson. Now, am I predicting an upset with Florida State over Clemson on November the 8th? No. But it is a game to pay attention to. It is a tougher game than what you realize. And I think Florida State, coming off of an embarrassing season, I truly believe that they're going to catch more people off guard than not. The two toughest games of Florida State's schedule was Alabama, the very first game of the year, and then at Clemson, two and a half months later. So Clemson needs to pay attention to this. Don't let last year sway you. Go out, take care of business, but know that Gus Malzahn is definitely going to do his very, very best to undermine who you are, what you are, and try to put you in your place. And he would love to do that. He would love to do nothing more than that. The next toughest game for Clemson is going to shock some people. Maybe you think this should be on up in the rankings that I'm going to give out here. But for me, this is a team that Clemson treated them like they should have treated them when they played them in the first half of the ACC championship. Remember, Clemson was up like 21-0 or 21-7 on SMU like that. It looked like it was going to be a good old-fashioned butt whipping. Then our defense allowed SMU to run the same play. Let me rephrase that. The coaching on the defense allowed Clemson, or not Clemson, but SMU to run the same play over and over and over and over and over again, and didn't figure out how to stop it. But our new defensive coordinator, Tom Allen, when he coached against SMU in the college football playoff, he turned, it may not have been that same exact play, but I want to say that little quick dump off that they were doing, that Clemson, it was like, what voodoo is this? He turned two of them into pick sixes very early on. And they embarrassed SMU. Well, he's now our defensive coordinator. With that said, SMU has to come to Clemson on October the 18th. Rhett Lashley is an opportunist, and he's going to take the opportunity in his fourth year with SMU and their second year in the ACC. He's going to take as much advantage he possibly can of this spotlight and this chance to get back at Clemson. By the time they play the Tigers in Death Valley, that will be their seventh game. So we'll know how they're doing. We'll know if Kevin Jennings, the returning quarterback, if he's hitting a stride. We'll know if some of the transfers they've brought in, some of the recruits they've brought in, maybe some guys that only true SMU fans, experts would know, hey, man, everybody's overlooking this guy. You better not overlook him. We'll know if they've got their feet up under, but let me be very clear about this. I believe that Clemson, with their new defensive coordinator, will know how to handle SMU. With that said, Rhett Lashley is an opportunist, and I've explained this before in other videos. There's good opportunists and bad opportunists. What's the difference? Bad opportunists will steal, cheat, lie, be unethical. That's a bad opportunist. A good opportunist steps back and says, hey, this opportunity is in front of me. It's not unethical. I'm going to do what I possibly can. I'll bring in the transfers that I can bring in. I'll use that Texas money to bring in the transfers and bring in the players and so on. Rhett Lashley has had his work cut out for him at SMU, and he's done very well. 2-11-3 seasons in a row, and got them to the college football playoff no matter what did happen. Okay? With that said, I'm seeing them come into Clemson. You have to respect him. You have to respect what they've done. And this is not a really, really tough game, but it's not a really, really easy game. But it is a game that Clemson needs to pay attention to, because it is the toughest game that they'll play all year. SMU's toughest games is at Clemson. And by the way, there's a really good chance they could come into Clemson undefeated because the teams they're playing beforehand are not that great. Some of them are okay. East Texas A&M, Baylor, at Missouri State, at TCU. They're off. Then they play Syracuse. Then they play Stanford. Then they're at Clemson. Okay? So there's a chance they could come into Clemson undefeated, and it looks like a much bigger game than what it is. Their actual other big games of the season is later on. They play Miami and Louisville. So none of this getting away from the good football teams. All right? But that is a game Clemson needs to keep their eye on, because if they don't, and they look at them and say, well, hey, they lost some players. They only have 5 returning on the defense. Maybe this is not going to be that great. It could come back to bite them. But I think this is a tougher game, it's more manageable. Let's talk about the next team you need to keep your eyes on if you're a Clemson football fan. So Clemson starts off their season with LSU, then they play Troy, but then they take their first road game. And where is that? The closest ACC school to the Tigers. And it's Georgia Tech. Brent Key is going into year 4, and man, he took over a mess. A big mess. Now, last year they went 7-6. And I think that they're a better football team than 7-6. I really do. They're a team that returns their starting quarterback, Haynes King. They have their starting running back, Jamal Haynes. And those two guys can be very dangerous. You need to remember that this team put up over 500 and something yards against Georgia last year. Took them to 8 overtimes. And this would be a marquee win for Brent Key. And the Tigers going right down the road, playing in Atlanta. I mean, good grief. Georgia Tech, if my memory serves me correct, signed their first 5-star player in forever, if not ever. And Brent Key did it. The man can coach. He's an opportunist. This would be big for him. This would be massive. And I believe that because of what I said earlier, they are marking this game down with Clemson, and they're saying, hey, Georgia Tech and Clemson used to be a good game, a game that both teams could win. That hasn't been the case for a very, very long time. It just hasn't. I mean, you got to think back in 2020, Clemson beat them 73-7. Yeah, I know it was Jeff Collins, but still. I mean, Clemson has beat the crap out of them so much over the years, it's not funny. 42-21 in 23. In 22, Clemson beat them 41-10 in the opening game of the year. What's my point? My point is, Brent Key is turning things around, and a win over Clemson would be big. Clemson must pay attention to this game. Don't overlook this game, and keep your eyes on the LSUs and the Miamis and the Louisvilles. We're going to talk about them in just a second. But if you overlook this game because it doesn't seem like really, really important, you lose. And it'd be big for Brent Key and Georgia Tech. Let me get in here and say hello to a few people, and then I'm going to move as fast as I possibly can. Got Will Man in here. Good to see you, my man. Love from Florida. Bentley Kellett, love from NC. I'm most worried about Georgia Tech. I'm definitely paying attention to him. Mr. You Mad Bra has been a long-time supporter of my channels, and I appreciate it, my man. Good to see you in here. I'm worried about LSU and the Coots. Greed GT is good. Going to the Troy game. Hope to see y'all there. Hello, my friend. The Coops take a big step back on D. FSU played us tough. Louisville is still a tough game. Good evening, Brian. Go Tigers. Normandy T. Great job, you the man that knows. Good to see my man. Junkyard Dog said Clemson's defense will choke the other teams. I think Boulware got them junkyard dog mentality. I love it. Jaden Butler coaching matters. Clemson could have potential to win it all. Let's limit the coaching mistakes and we'll be just fine. Hey, listen, folks, if you like talking college football outside of Clemson, just want to remind you, I have a link below this video for my new channel, Another College Football Podcast. Yes, go check it out. I just broke down the ACC, all 17 teams. It's a longer video, but I will give you a cheat, okay? In the first 17 minutes, I break down our biggest games. I go a little more in, or not biggest games, the biggest teams in the ACC. And I'm talking about a lot of them right now, but I broke down the best teams in the ACC. So this is going to coincide with it a little bit, but you get a little more information over there. So go check it out. Pass it around to your friends. That's how the channel grows, is when you suggest it to someone and they're like, hey man, you're working or you got your AirPods in. Somebody's like, what are you listening to? Yeah, I'm listening to this guy ramble about college football. Man, I love college football. Well, then check him out. So I appreciate y'all doing that. Hope everybody's in. Right now I have 36 on the live stream. I hope there's 36 thumbs up and 36 subscriptions if you haven't subscribed already and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's get back to this thing. Now, so far we have Florida State, we have SMU, we have Georgia Tech. Now, we need to go back to reality here. We need to go back to the reality that Clemson football is the king of college, or the king of ACC football. I almost said college football. They're going to have to do a lot to really nail that down and make me think that. But the very next game that if I'm Clemson and I'm trying to pay attention the best I possibly can to teams who could definitely knock me off. I'm not talking about teams like Troy or Furman, no offense, Paladins. But teams like that you can just spot the football, run good old-fashioned plays, and your athleticism is just going to beat them. You don't need to open up the playbook for Troy. We don't need to see how creative you are against teams where you don't have to be creative. Save those good plays for the really good teams that can outcoach you. But this team right here is a team that Clemson owes some revenge. This is a team that if you truly believe what I believe, that coaching truly matters, look no farther than this team. You know who I'm talking about. Clemson has to go play them at their house on November the 14th. It's the Louisville Cardinals. I can't speak. I'm having a stroke. Louisville returns 16 of their starters last year, and it's split down the middle, 8 on each side. 8 on each side. They bring back their returning rusher, Isaac Brown. They went to the transfer portal and got former Southern California quarterback Miller Moss. Sure, he got benched, but something's going on at SoCal. You can't help but notice it. It's not good out there. Really hasn't been good out there since fluffy-haired Pete Carroll. The fluff in the front. Since he's been there. But Jeff Brom can coach. And he is definitely an opportunist of all opportunists. Now, their schedule is not tough until October the 17th. So what does that mean? They play Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, then they're off, then they play Bowling Green, then they're at Pittsburgh. They play Virginia, then they're off again on the 11th. So don't be shocked when Louisville goes 5-0. Don't be shocked. Then they play at Miami. Ooh, okay, now things are getting a little interesting. After that, they're playing Boston College. They're not that good. They're at Virginia Tech. Not that good. California on November the 8th. Bad. There is a great chance that they'll play Clemson on November the 15th, ranked in the top 20, maybe the top 15. If they beat Miami, they're definitely in the top 15, top 12. After Clemson, by the way, they play at SMU and Kentucky. But we're focusing on Clemson and Louisville. I'm setting the stage of what Clemson could be facing. A one-loss team. And I know people are out there are going to be like, well, hold on. They really haven't played anyone other than Miami. True. Here's the difference. Brom can coach. I know you're like, Brian, I'm tired of hearing. Brom can coach. And with this many returning starters, under his guidance, there's a good chance they could play Clemson and they're undefeated. They are undefeated. Remember, Clemson's not playing Miami in the regular season. Louisville will. Clemson's not. Clemson has the other tough teams in the ACC. If you go watch my video on another college football podcast, you'll see that. You'll hear my reasons why. But this is the third toughest game that Clemson will play. This is the third toughest game that Clemson's going to play. Play in Louisville, later on in the season. And Clemson owes them some payback. To recap where we're at right now, I started out with Florida State. I went to SMU. I went to Georgia Tech. I'm talking about Louisville now, and now I'm concluding that you have to pay attention to them. You owe them for what they beat you in Death Valley at night for the first home loss at night since I think 2013. You owe them. That was the game that had Clemson not received a gift from Fran Brown and Syracuse by beating Miami. Clemson wouldn't have went to the ACC championship and they wouldn't have made it into the college football playoff. Respect them by paying attention to them and beating them. My second toughest game of the year. Who could it be? Because you know what, it'll by the process of elimination, you'll figure out who my number one is, and I'll get to that in just a second. It's the very first game of the year, LSU. They are the second toughest game on Clemson's schedule this year, and it will be the very first game of the year. Now, before all of not all of you, but some of you Clemson fans who this is what you do. You give Clemson a pass for losing the very first game of the year if they play just a team with a pulse. If they play a team with a pulse and they lose the very first game of the year, you go, well, it's their very first game of the year. And you pause and you go, well, hold on, that other team they just played, it was their very first game of the year too. The math ain't mathing. Make it make sense. It doesn't. LSU always recruits well. They have Garrett Nussmeier. Between Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, whether you agree with it or not, they have a lot of preseason hype right now. As between the both of them, it being two of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. Whether you agree with that or not, I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is go look up any video talking about the top quarterbacks in college football. You're going to find both these guys, and they face off in week one. It is the dream that major media groups and independent YouTubers and anyone who writes about sports, talks about sports, whatever. It is the dream matchup when you have these types of guys with teams ranked this high playing each other in the first game of the year. Talk about kicking off with a major bang. Now, they return 8 on each side of the ball. Caden Durham rushed for 753 yards last year. He's back. Caleb Jackson, he's a contributor. He's back. course, Nussmeier, he passed for over 5,000 or 4,000 yards, not 5,000. Aaron Anderson, their leading wide receiver, he's back. 884 yards. This is a tough game. This is not going to be one that Clemson just shows up to and says, hey, yeah, we're here in Death Valley and we're the real Death Valley and all this bunch of good crap. And we're just going to come and go as we please. This is a really, really, really tough game. And let's talk about Harold Perkins. I mean, my guy can play. I mean, this guy is a ridiculous talent. And again, LSU has the talent. We have the history. The last time Clemson and LSU played, LSU got them. That was in the national championship with Joe Burrow. I mean, they have guys like Whit Weeks, the linebacker, who's ridiculous. Harold Perkins is a machine. A.J. Halsey at strong safety. So they're going to bring in a lot of talent, but let me tell you what a lot of people says but on, and that is Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, hold on, let's pause this. It's not just Brian Kelly. It was Ed Orgeron, the end of his era, and Brian Kelly put together. LSU has not won a season opening game in the past 5 seasons. And they had Jaden Daniels, okay? Now, a lot of people are looking at Brian Kelly and they're saying, oh, he's a terrible coach. Brian Kelly is not a terrible coach. He's not. Brian Kelly is not, in my opinion, an elite coach. When I think of elite, I think of Saban. Well, that's easy. I think of Urban Meyer. Well, Urban Meyer, let's not talk about off-the-field antics. I'm talking about when you have to face him head-to-head and he's on his game, you've got problems, pal. And all of a sudden, your little jokes about him isn't making up for what's on the scoreboard. Brian Kelly has got his teams, mainly Notre Dame, into some big games. Here's the problem. In the big games, they don't do well. Clemson better pay attention to this game. This game is in Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson is fielding the best football team that they have fielded since Trevor Lawrence and ETN were suiting up for the Tigers. Clemson Tigers, that is, and you cannot you're not going to overlook this game, but this game, no excuses. LSU is coming. LSU's an SEC school. According to preseason projections, some have them in the top 5, top 4 of the SEC, and that's pretty big considering who's in front of them. So with that said, you can almost immediately guess who is the number 1 toughest team that I believe that Clemson's going to play this entire season. Now, I'm not trying to offer a bunch of respect or kudos to our feathered foe in Columbia. I'm friends with Gamecocks. My oldest son, he's an incredible kid. In fact, right now he's on a mission trip in a foreign country. Can't wait to see him. He comes back in 6 weeks. We're very proud of him. But the only flaw of my oldest son is that he is a Gamecock. And that's thanks to his grandfather, who is a friend of mine, who his only flaw is that he is a Gamecock. But the toughest game Clemson will play this year will be against the South Carolina Gamecocks, unless, listen to me, unless something dumb happens in South Carolina. Now, I know that Dowell Loggins is no longer there. I know that he's gone. And that is big for the Gamecocks. I said that a couple of weeks ago, that just because their new OC and the old OC may run the same plays. They may come from the same coaching tree and all this bunch of stuff. However, listen, just because that they're still different people. And different people, though they have similarities, are still different. So could South Carolina fall apart and me have to eat my words? Sure, and I would love every second of it. With that said, Shane Beamer is a good football coach. Here we go. No, Shane Beamer's a good football coach. And you know what's more dangerous about him than when Steve Spurrier was there? He's decades younger, excuse me. Totally messed that up. He's decades younger than Steve Spurrier. Spurrier came in with this big, massive name who had coached, won a national championship, won a Heisman Trophy himself, and then coached Heisman Trophy winner. But listen to me, Shane Beamer is the son of someone who had did some really good things. But he himself is having to pave his own road. And he's paving his own road at a school that really, other than George Rogers and a couple of good years with Steve Spurrier, has absolutely no history. And he has taken that team and beaten Clemson 2 out of the past 3 years. He has a quarterback that Clemson could not tackle last year. And yes, scheme and preparation and development had everything to do with it. Lenoris Sellers is a horse. He can play football. And this guy is a machine. But the thing I'm still questioning is the play calling and the development by the new offensive coordinator, and if he and Lenoris Sellers, if he calls the best plays for Lenoris Sellers. That's interesting. South Carolina, here's something that I'm seeing out of Beamer. Beamer realizes the importance of the South Carolina Clemson football game, the rivalry. He realizes it. He really does. And you know how I know this? By the way he's approaching it. Serious. By the way he is approaching this rivalry. So, for me, the toughest game coming up in this season. Can you imagine if Clemson went into South Carolina and they were undefeated? It's possible. With all the returning players that Clemson has. Then you hire at DC, which I think is probably one of the best hires Dabo's ever made. Can you imagine how fired up he would get his team to come in and upset Clemson, especially if they have had a decent season? Now, South Carolina's schedule is one of the toughest in the country. They play LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, A&M. Cap it off for Clemson. I mean, they're not playing an easy schedule. And I would love for them to lose every ball game. But even if they come into this game sub 500, they will play Clemson tough. And Clemson must pay attention to this ball game, not because it's just the rivalry, but because this team could actually be pretty good this year. So to recap, Florida State, SMU, Georgia Tech, Louisville, LSU, and the number one toughest game is the South Carolina Gamecocks. I really do believe that is I believe that's just one of the crazy games that we're going to say, hey, let me hop in here and say hello to some people who's hopped in here, trying to catch back up. Musty Martian, what's up? Good to see you, my man. Big John, happy anniversary. Afternoon, Professor Brian. We need more Cole Turner. He's like cowbell. We need more. Hey, Turner. I think they need to get some speed, get some plays where they run some sweeps and stuff to him and so on, get him out on the edge. But I know what you're talking about. Oh, Dabo, man, he'll just overhype him. If I was Cole Turner, I'd be like, man, I appreciate what you're doing and I love you and thank you for your connection to my family. And taking care of me and my brother and so on, honoring your promise to our dad. Man, I'm going to need you to stop overhyping me because it's making me look bad. Good to see you, Big John. Thanks for supporting the channel. See that symbol beside his name? That means he supports the channel on a monthly basis, $3 or $5 per month. If you want to do that, remember the link below the video. Yeah, below the video. Go click it. You can do it as well. Justin Parrott, Cole Turner is a real one. He's going to be a touchdown hero. The video game. Enough said. I'll get through here. Toughest game for Clemson is the game Cole Turner doesn't play. Y'all are on it, man. Y'all are on it. Chase Henderson, my old buddy. May there. It's good to see you, Chase Henderson. Chase has been a friend of, well, we've known each other for a while now. And Chase is a friend, well, to me. So, Chase, thanks for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. May there to you. Good to see you. Everybody, I'll pause here and let you know. Remember, my new channel is below this video. Another college football podcast where I'm just talking about college football as a whole. I'm working on the next video. The ideas for it right now. I have a pretty good one. I think it'll stir the pot a little bit. You know, I'd never do that. So y'all go check it out. Subscribe. It is free. Almost 100 subscribers on a brand new channel that's, I believe, less than a week old. So go check it out. Jacob Geddes. What's good, Brian? I think Clemson beat them this year thanks to Wes by play calling too. Let me see. What's good when no longer at Clemson? Did you talk about Tyler Brown being back? I did a couple of weeks ago. Tyler Brown, I think I'll just touch on this really, really quick. I said this on a phone call between you and I think I said this on a couple of videos, but I'll ensure that everyone hears this response. Tyler Brown, people have forgotten about him. Why? He got injured. And he sat out last year. And then two of the best wide receivers that Clemson's had walk through their door since the T. Higgins days came in and put on a clinic. And so people have forgotten about him. I think this works out for young Tyler. Why? Because if he walks out there, they put him in the slot, and you have Wesco, you have Moore, you have Smith coming out there, you have Antonio Williams. Tyler Brown's going to get overlooked. I hope he makes every one of us remember him. So, yes, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for him. Do you think Beamer loses the Beamer Bowl? It's according which version of his dad's team he would be. If he's against Vic or that Tyrod Taylor team, he's losing. There's let me see. Tyler Brown and Cole Turner, Justin Parrott, just having some fun. All right, folks. So let me know who's our toughest game or toughest games. Who do you agree with? Who do you think I left out? I know some of you may bring up North Carolina, but let me tell you right now, I'm hearing more about off the field things with North Carolina than I'm hearing about on the field things. And remember, no matter what's going on off the field, it really doesn't matter when you line up head to head. So anyway, let me know who you think our toughest game is, what the games that you disagree with me on. I hope you'll check them out. Remember, the new channel, Another College Football Podcast. The link is below this video. Go check it out. The first 17 minutes, I break down the toughest teams in the ACC, period. All right? So y'all check that out. Pass along to your friends, neighbors, and clergymen. Y'all be good. And as always, go Tigers.